Bhagavāraham samma sambuddho samākārto ayena bhagavata dhammo supatipanno yassa bhagavato sāvaka sangho tammayam bhagavantam sadhamam sacama ime sakare yadharahan arupite abhipujayama sadhuno bhante bhagavan sujira varinibuddhopi pājima janatanu brahmanasa ime sakare dugatapanaka prabhute patitannato amma kandi darata ekaya sukaya arang samma sambuddho bhagava buddhan bhagavantam abhivadi. Swagato bhagavata dhammo dhammam vasami supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho sangham namami. Dvayam buddhassa bhagavato bhagavatanamakarandaro masi. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, very nice to see everyone again. So please now, everyone here, everyone online, sit up well, nice straight back, body and mind alert. And cameras on, please. And you close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, you leave everything behind. All that you've been thinking about, worrying about, you put it all down and you leave it. And you try now, at least for this evening, to keep your attention here and now. And we'll commence as usual by bringing to mind the Buddha, reminding ourselves of our great teacher and inspiration, recollecting his perfect mind, a mind that was quite clear, quite free of any kind of corruption or defilement. And more than that, far away, far distant from all that kind of stuff, all forms of greed, hatred, and delusion. A truly incredible being, perfect in knowledge and conduct. Now, when you recollect the Buddha, or you are reminded of the Buddha in any way, be inspired to follow in his footsteps and try yourselves to do what he did and cleanse your mind of all greed, hatred, and delusion, and free yourselves utterly from all suffering. And as you embark on this quest, try to remember to keep a mind and attitude of loving kindness. Remember to be kind to yourself, caring of yourself. This is not an easy path, and there'll be many ups and downs, and sometimes you'll be disappointed in yourself. Remember, you're not perfect yet. One day you might be, but not yet. So be kind to yourself. But remember your good points, your merits, the good things that you do, and take pleasure in them and endeavor to do them again and again. But at the same time, be accepting. And the same in your relations and attitudes to others. Be kind, be caring, see their good points, and accept them. And now take a moment to remind yourselves of the nature of our human condition. Here we are. Time is passing. Many of us met a few days ago, a week ago, and we're already that much older now. And so it goes on. It's a one-way street. Life hath but one direction, and time's its only measure. And at any time we can become unwell. Something can go wrong within us that we've never heard of. It's a very precarious existence that we live, really and truly. And then whatever happens, one day we will die. And so will our friends, relatives, loved ones, the lot, everyone. All that lives must die. Face up to these realities. and consider your opportunities. Add a little urgency to your practice, to your efforts to understand. So, check that you're sitting up well. Remember to remain absolutely still and quite deliberately gather and concentrate your minds. And direct your attention first to your body, your physical presence. Be aware of your posture, how your body is arranged, and the shape that it makes. And then notice your breathing. Notice just where and how you perceive the breath. And determine now to keep your attention just there. So you are mindful and aware of each in-breath, each out-breath. And determine to keep your mind quite still, following each in-breath and each out-breath. Concentrate on being mindful of your breathing. Try to remain absolutely still. Please be absolutely still. Take this very seriously and do your best to keep your mind focused and concentrated. And when you do see your mind wandering, when you are aware of something else, whether it's an ache or a pain or a sound or anything at all, stay still and simply pay attention. Be mindful and aware of that experience. Use it. Know it and let it go. And find the breath again and again. Try to keep your mind on your breathing, mindful and aware of each in-breath, each out-breath. So please stay seated just as you are. No need to move or to do anything, but to remain quite still, concentrated. And during the next few minutes while I'm talking, all you need to do is just listen. There's a collection of teachings that go right back to the very earliest of times, known as the Bodhipakkhya-dhamma. There are 7 sets of teachings within that collection. And looking through them, you can't help but notice that mindfulness is repeated several times. In fact, out of the 7 sets, it occurs in 5 of them, which, of course, is a strong indication of the importance of the practice of mindfulness in Buddhist training. The very first set of teaching in that collection is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And this, of course, is essentially the Buddha's great discourse, detailed discourse, on the setting up and practicing of mindfulness. The Pali term that we translate as mindfulness is sati. And we have to remember that originally this word meant something like remembering. And within mindfulness there is a degree of remembering. So when you've been attempting to keep your mind concentrated on the breathing, you've had to remember to keep your mind there. And it might well have been that from time to time you've forgotten. And that's allowed your mind to wander. So it's important to remember, remembering as an element within the meaning of mindfulness. But in that discourse, the Buddha speaks of mindfulness and awareness, the sort of the context, the surround. So if you are being mindful of something, then there is the awareness of what surrounds whatever that might be. And in that discourse, he gives 4, well, we call it 4 foundations, 4 aspects of mindfulness, 4 areas of mindfulness, perhaps is better. So he speaks first of all of being mindful of the body in many ways, not just being mindful of the body moving, breathing, but also being mindful of its structure and the fact that it will deteriorate and eventually be disposed of. He speaks of being mindful of feelings, of pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings. And he speaks about being mindful of the state of your mind. And then he goes on to talk about being mindful of Dharma. And he lists a number of his teachings. And amongst these teachings, he includes the Four Noble Truths, but then also the Five Hindrances. Now, this last section is sometimes translated in a rather difficult way. At least I've always felt that. To suggest activities of your mind. But the word used is Dhamma. And there are these lists of the Buddha's teachings. So it seems to me that it's being mindful of, yes, your experiences, what you will experience, for example, when you are watching your mind, but also what the Buddha was teaching, what the Buddha was pointing to. And it reminds us that what the Buddha was talking about over and over again was actual experience. We experience suffering. We experience the cause of suffering. We experience these hindrances. Now, these are something to be aware of, to know about, because until you do something about them, until you manage to overcome them, you can't say that your mind is really concentrating. And I'm sure most of you realize that keeping your mind properly concentrated is a bit of a challenge. We're not used to it. And more in this modern world, we're not encouraged to concentrate. Rather, our minds are grabbed by the media, by the politicians, by various experiences and influences. And we don't have very often to keep our minds there on something. In the past, it was rather different. People didn't have the entertainments that we have now. And the big entertainment for many country people was listening to an hour-long sermon in church. And for that, of course, you have to be fairly concentrated. So, keeping your mind still on one thing may be a bit of a challenge. You have to exercise your memory, to remember to keep your mind there. And you also need to remember what the unconcentrated mind is. You need to know something about these hindrances. When they poke their head in, then your mind is taken and it's off somewhere else. And it's not there just with your breathing. Of course, watching your mind and becoming aware of these movements of your mind can be a very valuable lesson, which is why I say over and over again to pay attention. Don't follow the desire to scratch or move around or fidget or get up or pay attention. As soon as you're aware that your mind has wandered off, you're dreaming about something, or you're getting a bit fed up with a bit of a pain in your knee or something, be aware. Watch it. And when you do that, you will notice that it's not a permanent phenomena. And very often in the case of pain, the pain will reduce and even sometimes disappear. And that happens simply because we tend to make a big thing out of pain. We don't like it, we're worried about it sometimes, and we hold on to it and feed it. And with anything that we experience, when we feed it, and that's what we tend to do all too often, it grows. When you're simply mindful and watching, you're not feeding it, and it will nearly always diminish. But in the process, you're seeing the reality of change. So that's important to notice. Now, these hindrances, they are what we experience. And I should think all of us will experience some of them. On occasions, one of them or two of them might be a real problem. Dullness, for example, the mind becoming a bit dreamy, not necessarily dropping off and sleeping, but just a bit dull. It's all too easy for this to happen. And we shouldn't be too sort of ashamed or worried about it. It's part and parcel of working with our minds that we have to deal with these things, these experiences. Even one of the Buddha's great disciples, one of the two chief disciples, Mahamoggallana, was admonished on one occasion by the Buddha for dropping off. That was before, of course, he became an arahant. So it's a common experience. It's also not uncommon to find your mind thinking about pleasurable experiences. Everyone, I should think, wants some kind of pleasure and enjoyment. It can vary from person to person, but I imagine that many of you, when you're sitting, your mind may wander off to think about something you've read that you've enjoyed, some thought about a meal that you might have later, about any of the pleasant things that you might experience through your senses. You have to be careful, because then your mind is away from the object you're supposed to be concentrating on. Your mind is wandering. Another odd experience, another of the hindrances, is that sometimes, even when you've wanted to practice meditation, perhaps been thinking about doing it all day, looking forward to a bit of peace and quiet, you become angry. Anger appears. And it can be very difficult to deal with that. The only good thing about it is that it brings energy. So it's rather easier to deal with in a sense than becoming dull and sleepy. which of course brings no energy. And often you don't quite realize it, that you're in a bit of a stupor. Then there's restlessness. And all you can do is just sit and be aware of this mind that's jumping about and will not keep still. One person online tonight, I noticed fidgeting quite a lot. It didn't look as though his mind was inclined to be still. And I'm not sure that he even saw the point in making it still. If your mind is restless, then all you can do is just sit there and watch it. The last of these hindrances, which is the most dangerous, I think, is doubt. When you begin to wonder whether what you're doing is the right thing after all, or isn't there another form of meditation which would be more appropriate or more valuable to do? And so your mind jumps around and you never go very deep with anything. So be careful. These are all things that we experience. You need to watch out for them and deal with them quickly, should they arise. When I say watch out for them, I don't mean sit there and sort of just watching for anything like of these things to pop up. No, concentrate. Try to keep your mind on the breathing. And when you notice that your mind has left the breathing, deal with it. So that's enough of this for now. I just want to say one more thing, that tomorrow is a rather special occasion. It's the last day of the Wasa. It's the Pawarana day. And on Sunday, here we will celebrate the end of the Wasa, and also the 40th anniversary of this place. So I hope that you might be able to find the time to come here on Sunday, or at least remember our special occasion. So try to keep your minds just still for a moment. Bring loving kindness to mind. May you and all beings be well and happy. May you and all beings be free of all suffering. May you and all beings realize for yourselves the secure peace of Nibbana. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swagato Bhagavanta Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavanto Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. So thank you all very much for coming. Very nice to see you all. I hope you have a good week and we'll meet again soon. Good night.